I'm pleased to introduce you to the guest of honour this evening, Minister Simon Coveney, who is Fine Gael TD for Cork South Central and Minister for Housing, Planning, Community and Local Government. He launched THINKTECH call for applications here in Google in June. So it's a lovely full circle moment here because he was delighted to attend the ceremony. So, Minister, you're very welcome. Take it away.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Whenever I walk into Google, I feel I should be taking my tie off and making sure I don't have any written speeches. First of all, to Alice and to Deirdre, thank you for hosting this evening, and to Terence and the rest of the board at Social Innovation Fund Ireland. We are going to continue to back you, and we are going to continue to look for the kind of partnerships that has been created with google.org to try and release the potential that is there in so many people and so many projects like we're seeing this evening. From my perspective, in my profession, most people who are involved in it and who live off it in terms of commentary and media coverage and so on, focus on the problems all the time. Not too many people focus on the solutions. And that is why evenings like this evening are an inspiration for policymakers like me to be able to hear and see people who are enthusiastic about solving problems rather than sitting in the dark and wondering about how those problems will be managed or who somewhere else is going to find solutions to them. We have disruptive innovators all over the country. And I see that all the time. This morning I was up early. I was up about 6:30 this morning, and the first project I went to about 8:30 was a new homeless hostel, which ironically actually is going to be run by the Peter McVerry Trust. And they've been mentioned earlier today. And we're going to open 3 new hostels this Friday. One of them, unfortunately, the local community have taken an injunction against, but we'll get through that and it'll be open next week. And we're going to add about 230 extra bed spaces for emergency accommodation facilities for rough sleepers in Dublin, to ensure that through the winter everybody who needs a bed can get one. And I was thinking about that as I was listening to the speeches and the presentations as to just how relevant your solutions are. They're not just ideas for a business concept to grow on the back of. They're ideas that can actually fundamentally change the lives of many of the people who will be in that hostel on Friday night. There'll be 32 women and there'll be about 51 men. It's probably the best hostel facilities that you'll see anywhere in Dublin. And actually, the solution to homelessness is not more hostels. The solution to homelessness is finding homes for people and then ensuring that they sustain a life in those homes. But in the emergency that is there at the moment, we need to make sure that the immediate challenges that people face tonight and tomorrow night, whether it's snowing, raining, or whether it's icy, that they can actually go to a place that is safe, where they can get supportive wraparound services, and start the transition process from the chaotic lives that they lead towards something more stable and more predictable. And that's what solving homelessness is about, whether it's about a family or whether it's about an individual. But actually, if you look at the 4 projects that are being awarded both funding and support through the THINKTECH model, they're all relevant to that challenge. It doesn't take a genius to realize that actually most of the young people who find themselves homeless in this city are, in fact, nearly all of them are early school leavers. Many of them are out of prison. Do you know that 48% of people who leave prison actually have nowhere to go? And many of them find themselves accommodated in the kind of shelters that we'll open on Friday. But all of them, virtually all of them anyway, are early school leavers. About 70% of them have addiction issues and challenges, often to multiple substances. About 80% of them have mental health issues, as do about 40% of our population. But when you're homeless, those challenges become much more intense and much more difficult to manage. And so they become a real feature of the chaotic vulnerability that comes with homelessness. And then we have this challenge around homeless families. And even in the dark points of recent recessions in Ireland, whether that was in the 80s or before then, Ireland never had a homelessness problem for families because of the family structure in Ireland, which has been very strong. That's changed now. We've well over 1,000 families now that are homeless. We will spend between 50 and 60 million euros this year on hotel rooms in Dublin as emergency short-term accommodation for families, which sometimes turns into not so short-term. So we're changing all of that. And if you look at what iSchool are offering here, it is trying to ensure that people who, for whatever reason, have had a challenge in settling into and succeeding in the mainstream school system in Ireland, and who leave that. And we shouldn't be judgmental about those reasons. We should get on and try and find solutions to help them fulfill their own potential through some different vehicle. In this case, iSchool. And in doing that, help the more extreme and sharp end of people who, for all sorts of often very complex reasons, have found themselves in very, very challenging and difficult personal circumstances around homelessness. If you look at what Alone, or the Alone platform, are offering, many of the people that we will be trying to accommodate in those facilities will also be elderly people. And as they make the transition into living alone in a sustainable tenancy somewhere, we need to make sure that they can do that comfortably. We will see in the next 25 years an extra 1 million people living in Ireland. But the population itself isn't just changing, the makeup of the population is changing. The number of people who were on housing lists 20 years ago were predominantly part of family structures looking for social housing. Now nearly half of housing lists are individual people on their own looking for social housing solutions because of the makeup of family now and family breakup and family formation and so on. And so as people grow old on their own, we need, through technology, to provide clever solutions that can allow people to live independent lives on their own rather than having to move into a setting that they don't want to move into around nursing home care or some kind of institutional stroke hospitalization situation. And the Alone platform can pull together a lot of the technologies that are already out there to ensure that we encourage people to actually live fulfilling lives as elderly people through using technology. And there's a lot of sort of tech snobbery around old people, that actually they can't use technology, and so we shouldn't give it to them. And actually my experience is quite the opposite, actually. They have a huge curiosity around technology, and they have a lot of time on their hands to figure it out. And actually, the kind of platforms that we operate under now, whether it's on tablets or other forms of hardware, you know, I have a 7-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 3-year-old daughter, and all of them can use my iPhone and my iPad almost as well as I can, even though they can't spell. They can go straight into Netflix and they can look at what I've been viewing, and they'll ask me about the movies I've been watching a week ago. That's the problem with Netflix. There's nowhere to hide. Not that there is actually anywhere online these days. So that Alone platform, I think, is a great award winner, and I look forward to where it's all going. In terms of Food Cloud, I visited what was then the BIA project in Cork, which was developing this concept that is now coming under this banner of Food Cloud. I was also Minister for Food at the time, Minister for Agriculture. We have an extraordinary food industry in Ireland. Within Irish Indigenous companies, the food sector is dominant, particularly outside of Dublin. and outside of cities where technology is a big driver in terms of innovation. We have some of the best food companies in the world, bar none. And we have some of the best food innovation in the world, bar none. And that is why big food multinationals want to be in Ireland, linked to universities here, part of the kind of projects that are developing in some really exciting areas. And so the food waste area is an area that is totally under delivering in terms of what is possible. And when I hear people talking about there not being enough food in the world, how are we going to feed another billion people between now and 2050? Actually, the answer is we have plenty of food in the world if we didn't waste it. And if we ensured that actually people who don't have the capacity to produce or buy their own food can actually access it through the kind of technology solutions that we can provide in terms of delivery systems and management and so on. And the idea that, 150 bananas in this room would have been turfed in the bin and would be rotting and would probably be in somebody's garden as part of a compost heap, when actually many people would and could use that banana for a bit of energy this evening, is an area that technology can solve. I remember visiting one of the fastest growing countries in Africa last year, and they told me that 40% of their tomato harvest rots before it gets to market. And they import huge volumes of tomatoes, even though they grow more tomatoes than any other country in Africa. And I just thought to myself, surely there is a solution here in terms of systems and technology and know-how to be able to solve this madness. And we have it here in Ireland too. 1 million tons of food wasted every year, while at the same time we have to ensure that the hostels that will open this week can actually get access to good quality food with the variety and the nutrition that people deserve and need through the day. So that's another great project. And then space engagers. I wanted to leave them to the last because it's true. There are, according to the CSO, there are 40,000 vacant residential properties in Dublin. And unfortunately, some of them have people sleeping in the doorways tonight of those vacant properties. In Ireland, there are 260,000 vacant residential properties. 60,000 of them are holiday homes. So there's 200,000 all over the country. There are as many vacant residential properties in Dublin as there are properties in Galway. Now think about that for a second. When you think about the 1,165 or so families that don't have a home to go to. And you begin to realize that surely there is a way of trying to join the dots here by clever use of technology and management systems, but also by sheer knowledge. And we are, in our department, putting huge sums of money now into getting derelict or vacant properties back into use into the system to try and take pressure off the many areas, whether it's rental inflation in the private rental market, whether it's new social housing solutions. We'll spend €5.5 billion on social housing in the next 5 years. We'll add 47,000 social houses to the social housing stock, which is at about 140 at the moment in 5 years. And we will bring a lot of vacant properties back into use. But we need to know where they are. We need to know where the clusters are. And even though there is a sort of a rough stock take that is taken by local authorities, there isn't immediate information at my fingertips or at the fingertips of chief executives in local authorities who are trying to help us through this problem. So when we spend €5.5 billion of taxpayers' money, we want to make damn sure that we are spending it in the right places, on the right properties, to make sure that we are targeting areas where housing is needed most efficiently, as opposed to just building more and more and more housing estates on greenfield sites. While internally in Dublin, we see 1 in 4 or 1 in 5 buildings empty. And so the more knowledge we have, the more the solutions become apparent. And that is why the the Space Engagers project, and it was great to see Pat Doyle from the Peter McVerry Trust speaking and supporting that project. And we'll use that information too. I sanctioned 18 million euros today for the start of the new chapter of O'Devany Gardens. For anyone who knows the North Inner City well, you will know that has been a real problem project for many, many years. And we will see in the next 3 or 4 years, probably a project that's worth 200 million euros on that site. Moving ahead, producing 600 residential units. Half of them private, 20% of them affordable rental, 30% of them social housing. And we will deliver social housing in a very different way than it's been delivered in the past, through requiring mixed tenure in properties. The days of building all the social housing in one end of the city and all the private housing in other parts of the city are over. That is a way to divide communities. And we are going to force vibrancy, integration, diversity, and equal opportunities for children when they grow up, when they look at their neighbours. They see diversity and opportunity there. And so that's why, as part of that, we want to be targeting projects and sites and properties in a sporadic way, mixed into communities, turning them into social housing solutions and bringing them back into the private rental market as well. And the data that you will generate, I hope, will help us do that. When you think about it, what we're talking about here are solving problems of communities, of individuals, of society, that government needs to face and is willing to solve, but needs your help solving. I will commit money, I'll change policy, I'll do radical things if I'm convinced that it will work. But we need innovators to be able to make sure that those new policies can actually happen and take effect through the kind of innovation, disruptive innovation, in a positive way that we're talking about and celebrating this evening. So for all of you who didn't make the cut of the final 4, don't lose heart. Maybe there'll be another round. And for those of you who did within those companies, get more ambitious all the time. Push these projects, push this thinking to the very limit. You have great organizations behind you now in the context of the learnings you've taken, hopefully from Google, and the support that you've got and hopefully will continue to get through this program as it progresses. So look, can I just thank you all for taking the time to be here? I know there's lots of different people from different backgrounds. I have a job to do in terms of finding solutions to problems every single day. That's my job. But unless we get inspiration and ideas and technology solutions and answers and new ways of thinking for problems that may have been there for a very long time, well, then we're not going to get better outcomes. And so that's why my department will be committed to projects like this in the future. And if we get the kind of quality that we're getting this evening in terms of the award winners who come through the kind of testing system that I know Terence and others would have put in place for you, if you've got down to the final 4 from 65, I have no doubt that you're going to go a long way in terms of developing the concepts that are being supported financially and from a management point of view through this project. So look, well done to everybody. Take some inspiration from these people and let's focus in a more positive and solutions-based way on many of the problems that I'm glad to say, have the capacity to solve in Ireland because of the resources that we have available to us in terms of people and finance and ideas. Many parts of the world don't have those opportunities. So let's grasp them and make sure that they turn into success stories. So thanks very much, and I look forward to meeting many of you later on.